and that is social media.
We need more.
Yippee skippy. We'll try to make it a little bit fun, but I have to be honest with you, it's some scary stuff. I'm not going to give you any statistics this time. I probably will down the road. But for those online, I'll wait just a moment because some folks that aren't here, some kids, and I don't know if you guys know this or not, we actually record these. So if you ever want to go back and watch it, you can do that. We've had some really good chapel speakers, and I think we're going to have some more as well. So you have me this week, Mr. Ancona next week. We'll come back to this in a little bit. It was interesting, with this particular series, I wasn't even thinking about how I'm going to end today. But what I want you to be thinking about, most of you, I'm not going to have you raise your hands, but I would imagine most of you have some sort of a social media presence, or if you don't, you probably will. It's part of the world. I get that. And so I don't want you to be necessarily freaked out by this, but I do want you to start thinking, because I'm going to be doing this with our church. So this isn't just for you kids. A lot of times, as kids are like, oh, here they go, they're ripping on us again. Look, adults have as much struggle with social media as kids do. You guys have grown up with it. We have grown up in it, and that's a little bit different. But I want to put the fear of God in you a little bit today. I want you to think about some things, and I mean this in love. So I'm going to talk to you as a pastor. I'm going to talk to you as a dad. I'm going to talk to you as a 43-year-old man, and I want you to be thinking about just noodle, okay? I don't have my phone with me. I left it up in my office, but think about this. The last post you posted, if you have social media. If you don't, you're like, oh, I don't even have that yet. I don't think that's probably a bad thing. But you probably will. If you're going to go to college, colleges, that's one of the ways you get connected with them. I mean, this is the world we live in. But I want you to think about this. The last post you made, could you stand before Jesus without any shame? Or the last thing you looked at last night or this morning, if I put it on the screen, or if you put mine on the screen, would I want to be in the room with the rest of you, let alone with Jesus? I think that's a pretty powerful question a lot of us don't think about. So as we get into it today, I want you to think about it. So this is what I entitled it. Post, boast, toast, roast, and most. I like to rhyme, right? But I think that probably is a good indication of social media today. Some want to put a post. A lot of people boast. Some people love to toast other people. I've seen things that Christians, let alone, and probably, frankly, some of you, have posted that you would never say to someone in person. But it's a piece of cake to post it online, right? We love to roast people on social media. Twitter is famous for that. And the most is because, I don't know about you, but I know for me, I want people, most importantly, to know with my social media what I'm about. And I can tell you in about 30 seconds. I'm about my family, I'm about Jesus, I'm about my church. Sadly, sometimes I'm about the Cleveland Browns and my sports teams, some theology. That's pretty much Jonathan Jones in a nutshell. And if you go on my social media, you should find most of those things. There's a few other things I'm about, but what are you about? What does your social media say you're about? So if you're on Instagram, if you're on Facebook, if I had 10 seconds, because that's really who you are, right? Is that really what you're about? So, think about those things. So how do we handle social media in a world where social media handles us? And honestly, this is nothing new. Why Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. In fact, it's my conviction. You can stick this in your mind and just think about it. What if social media actually isn't a new thing? I've often wondered, before the flood with Noah, did they have computers? Well, you might shake your head. How do we know that? They were pretty smart. They may not have. They may have. We don't know. Computers necessarily aren't necessarily a new thing. What we do with them isn't a new thing at all. They might be new to us, but these aren't new things. We can read in the Bible just about everything we see on social media today, good and bad. So I think sometimes we tend to do this, kids, and I do this as well. We tend to look at the world like this with the Bible, right? And the way the Bible is meant to be is we're supposed to look at the world, if it was possible, through the Bible. And that's where, things become a little bit challenging. So, you got your notes in front of you. Well, we're not going to spend a long time today on this, but these are some rules that I've set up for myself. And I would kind of encourage you to think about them today. All right? So, and I am not here as someone that has dealt with social media perfectly. But I do think that if you went out, I have an Instagram account, I have a Facebook account, I have a Twitter account. I used to be on Tumblr. I never had MySpace. Most of you probably don't even know what that is. You remember MySpace, don't you, Mrs. Church, just a little bit? Remember that, Mr. Ancona? Remember MySpace? Nope.
I never did that.
Yeah, I never did it either. I never had an account. In fact, my parents wouldn't let me. But some of us remember that. So I remember when I got a Facebook account, my dad's like, "Oh, I'll never do Facebook," and he finally got on. He didn't post much, but so over the years, this is what I've developed for me. Okay, and I would highly encourage you. If you say, "Well, I don't like all," I'm not. What I'm going to give you from the Bible is from the Bible. These are some things, though, from someone who is a father, who is a pastor, who's a husband, who's a man, and these are things that have helped me. I call it the 5-second, 5-minute, 5-day, 5-year rule. Okay? It's not really new with me. It's just things over the years I've read. So, here you go. When I post something, okay, let's say I was to post a picture today. People will do it. I've actually thought about doing it today as an example, but I was like, no. But let's just say I have my phone here, and we took a quick, selfie, everybody give me your selfie face, whatever it be, right? The rule of 5, I would ask myself is this. Would I regret posting that in 5 seconds? Probably not. 5 minutes? Maybe, because I didn't ask your parents if it was okay if I posted it. 5 days? Probably, because looking at this group, there's probably a parent or two in here that probably wouldn't appreciate you being on my page. What about 5 years? Would you regret it in 5 years? Maybe. I can't believe PJ took that picture of us and posted it on his Facebook, right? And then, here's the other thing. I didn't ask any of you if it was okay. I just took the picture. Now, I didn't, for those online, okay? I don't have my camera. I didn't really do it. But you see where I'm going with this? Now, I want you to think with me. The last time you posted a picture with someone else, did you ask them if it was okay? Did you ask the parents if it was okay? Because believe it or not, you guys can't get in trouble, but I'm an adult. If I post a picture of a minor that's not my child, and I don't have that parent's permission, it could actually be legal issues for me. So, there's some just things to think about. People don't, and social media has thrown this all way out of whack. Some of you in here are 18. You're in a different world. At least I'm looking at a couple in the back. If you're in the same world I'm in now. You have to be careful what we post, right? I read an article the other day of a young lady who wanted to go to college. And she's now not going to go to college because she did something stupid when she was 14 that she posted on Twitter. It will come back to bite you. So you might go, oh, here PJ is ripping out. No, I want you to learn from some of us that are a little older, some things we've done. So think about it. The rule of 5. Think it through before you do, okay? Again, you don't have to like it, you can laugh at it, but things that rhyme tend to get in our minds. So do you think it through before you do? And that should be a rule for all of our lives, right? Not just Facebook, but think about Instagram, let alone when I end today, TikTok, which I'll be honest with you, if you have TikTok, you should delete it immediately. And I don't feel bad about saying that. And I'll tell you why in just a moment, or in a few moments. Let alone the Chinese are probably tracking everything you do because they own TikTok. But on top of that, it's frankly very evil. And we'll get to that at the end. All right? So, will this post be out there for a long time? How many of you are Star Wars fans? Okay? We'll have a little fun today, okay? You know the thing on, I almost did it. They have this thing on PowerPoint that you can do it, but I was like, I didn't take the time to do it. But, you imagine you see that thing there in the galaxy far, far away. Every single post you and I have ever posted, you can never officially delete it. If you have a post on Instagram, all I have to do is take a snapshot, and it's never gone from my phone. You might delete it off Instagram, but it's there forever. That's scary stuff, right? So I want you to think about, I don't know, maybe some of you kids know this, but did you really think about the things you post? You know, I have 3 daughters. For some of you girls, not that it's not that way for the boys, but you post a picture of yourself that has anything to do with anything that is sexual in any nature, I want to give you an idea of what you're doing. Guys, it's the same. In Androscoggin County, where we live, we're at the very south end. We are the we're the 4th most populous county in the state. It's about 100, and I think there's a little under 200,000 people that live in our county. Okay? Lewiston, Auburn is the largest metropolitan area in the state outside of Portland. There's right around 65,000 people that live just 5 miles from us. If you include Lisbon and Brunswick and Topsom in the general area, this is actually the largest area in the state. Now, if you go down to Portland, and some of you know Saco and Biddeford, Westbrook, that's ultimately the biggest area, but we live in the 2nd largest area in the entire state. When I put a post, and I'll be mean, when I put a post on Facebook, if just Androscoggin County, if half the people saw it, that would be about 100,000 people. Our state has 1.3 million or 1.4 million. The entire Northeast is comprised of 60 million people from pretty much, if you're not familiar with it, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, up through New York City is what they call the Northeast, okay? The United States has 340 million and the world has 7 billion people right now. Do you imagine how many times my Facebook post could be reposted or how many people would see it? I think sometimes we look at social media and we think, I got a couple friends or someone else. There are ways. All it takes is one friend to take a picture of your picture and everybody sees it. So just some things to think about. You know, it's interesting. Social media is a good example for us someday, what's going to happen to us when we die. The Bible says after we die, then we have the judgment. And here's one of the things about the judgment. I'm going to stand there and I'm sure I'll have my excuses for lies I told, for sins I did, for things I should have done or shouldn't have done. And the reality is the one judge that I will stand before, he knows all things. I have no excuse he'll take. And I will be held accountable, as will you, for not just things I said, but things I posted, right? So think about that. So here they are. The rule of 5. Think it through before you do, right? Before you post it. And what goes for social media should go for life. This post will be out there for a long time in a galaxy far, far away. That's meant to be funny, and it's also meant to be true. It will be. It'll be there. The rule of 5. Does what I'm going to post lead to death or bring life? There's a young lady that just took her life because of Instagram. It's horrible. You know, I started something a few years ago. Actually, it was about 12. Now, I'm not going to tell you who, but I bet you could guess, all right? If you want, you can ask me later. I just don't like to say this stuff publicly, but I'll say it to you privately. Of the last 4 presidents we've had, I'm 50%. I voted for 2 of them, and I didn't vote for 2 of them. But one of the things I started noticing in a lot of our Christian colleges, when I was in college at the time, was if it was a president that people liked, even in the Christian college, they would, from the pulpit, or from where I'm at here, they would say really good things about them. Like, for instance, if it's President Biden right now, he's a great guy and we love him and yada yada, or I don't like him at all, or whatever it is. And they'd make fun of him, or they'd encourage him. And, I started reading my Bible, and it was interesting. Even David, who his own father-in-law, who's the king, tries to kill him, doesn't have anything really bad to say about King Saul. Now, I don't know about you, but if my father-in-law was trying to kill me, and he's never done that, I probably wouldn't stand up here and be like, he's a great guy, Just wouldn't happen. So I started thinking, how do I handle the President of the United States when I voted for him or her or didn't? So you know what I started doing? I started emailing or tweeting the President of the United States when they were elected, whether I voted for him or not. It was more for me than for them. I started it actually with the president I didn't vote for. And I sent them a tweet because they were on Twitter. It was a private message, and I just said, I want to congratulate you on your presidency, and I want you to know I will be praying for you, and as a good citizen of the United States, that God gives you wisdom. And I've done that for every single president since then. So think about this in light of social media. The rule of 5. Does what I'm going to post lead to death or life? Because I started realizing, I've seen a lot of friends and a lot of Christians they'll go on, the internet, and you could probably find some right now. I could probably throw them on the screen. Of people it could even be your parents. It could be me. They get on and say, well, I don't like, what President Biden did or what President Trump did or whatever else. Did they ever talk to the president? So if you didn't talk to the president, then why are you telling the world about it? I'll pick on my friend Sam back there, right? And you don't have to answer, okay? The rest of the kids, just think about it. Let's just say that I took a photobomb. Here's a good one. You guys know what photobombs are, right? I'll tell you a funny story about that in a minute. Let's say I took a photobomb with Sam and I. But he wasn't exactly looking his lovely debonair self, right? And I posted it and just had some fun, but he didn't know about it. I wonder how he would feel. And then if I said something about him, like, yeah, he's always this way, that just kind of was sort of a slight on Instagram, and Sam reads it, and he's like, wow, really? Like, PJ, that's how it is? And then maybe I said just a little dig, like something like, let's just say, and he wasn't, but let's just say today, maybe he was late for chapel. I made a little statement like, yeah, he's always late for chapel, okay? Which isn't true, okay? But we're just hypothetically. And then I post that online. How you gonna feel about that? Just give me a thumb up or down. Probably not real great, right? I wouldn't feel great about that. First of all, I didn't even tell you. I told everybody else about the fact that you were late for chapel, but I didn't even say it to you. Now, I'm not picking on any single person here. If any of you go out and go, oh, PJ was looking, yeah, I am friends with most of you on stuff. But I'm not thinking of any one of you. I'm thinking more of myself because I've been caught a few times. If you have not said something to the person, why would you ever post it online? Good or bad? So the question I ask myself is this: am I going to post leading to death or life? I've seen things that Christians have posted about other Christians or non-Christians that are just terrible. There's a word called eviscerate. So it just feels like one of those ugly words. And it's almost like they want people to hurt themselves because they're going to get back at them. The words you say matter. I mean, you guys and girls know that. Joking is one thing. Sure, jest is something. But to do things online, it's lasting. When we write things in word, it matters. I mean, that's why God, He wrote His love for us on the hands of His Son, Jesus. But He also wrote us a letter, a book. Because books matter, words matter. And, I just encourage you to think about that. So, there's one. I'll give you a fun photobomb one. So we had a competition many years ago in the church. I'm not looking to do it again, but it was a photobomb competition. I think it was 2013. So this is when Facebook was just kind of in its baby stages. And there were a couple of guys in the church that were just crushing me. Okay, how many of you like to lose? I hate losing. I hate it. I've lost enough in my life. I'm pretty competitive. And so they were just crushing me. One day they got 11 photobombs of me without me knowing. And it's even better to do that. So, right? And so it was just bothering me. So I finally decided I'm going to put an end to this. So I got a photobomb with both of them talking in youth group here one time. They were looking the other direction, but they just happened to turn at the right time. And I did one of these like this, and I got it. So I preset my phone while I was preaching up here on stage. And only 2 people in the church, me and the Lord, knew. And I set the picture to send them both a text. And I'll never forget sending it to one. He sat right over there where Mr. Partridge was at. And as I was preaching, I see him look up, and I'm just kind of winked at it. And the other one was right back here where Nick and Sam are. I never got another photobomb from them. Right? Social media can be fun. Things like that. It's not all bad. And I don't want you to think that you need to chuck it. We have to learn how to navigate. Sort of like driving. Some of you are going to get your license. A few of you here have it. It's daunting at first. It's a challenging thing. But once you do it, you have to learn the rules of the road. And I want you to understand social media is the same way. My fear for many of you is the fact that you just do it and you don't really think about it. So what does the Bible have to say, right? Because you're like, well, I haven't talked about the Bible yet. Well, here you go. Here's a couple of verses. And these are some questions that I ask myself, and I would encourage you. How does this post glorify God? And that's a very simple question. It goes back to the Westminster Confession of Faith, which is probably one of the oldest confessions that we have, at least from the old country, England. And it literally asks this question. It says, what is the chief end of man? To glorify God and enjoy him forever. And this question kind of comes out of that. That ultimately my life and your life, if you're into volleyball or you're into basketball, or you're a girl and you're into guys, or a guy and you're into girls, and those are not bad things, right? We want you guys to be into girls in the right place in the right time, and to wait till you're married to have sex and do all the things right. But if you're a guy and you like girls, that's a good thing. If you're a girl and you like guys, that's a good thing too. That's a natural thing, okay? But we should always ask questions like, how is my relationship glorifying God? How am I glorifying God in school? How am I glorifying God with my words? And I just wonder, how many of us think about that when we get ready to send that text? Or that, TikTok? Or Facebook? Or Instagram? Or Snapchat? Or whatever it is. I mean, maybe it's just a text message. Like, how many of us actually think, is this going to glorify God? Or is it going to glorify me? Or is it going to glorify them? Or is it going to, And so here's what the Bible has to say. Paul kind of brings in this athletic term. It's pretty interesting. Paul was very much, I think, into athletics, maybe more than we like to think about. And so some of you can think about that. We have several of you here that really enjoy sports. Some of you might enjoy other things. But whatever it is, you want to do your best. And so Paul brings in all these athletic analogies down in 1 Corinthians 9, verse 24 to 27. Pretty familiar. Most of you, I would imagine, probably have heard this. Let me just read it to you. It's right on the screen there. He says, do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but one receives the prize? Now imagine with me just for a moment. You have this Olympic race, okay? I've never seen this. Maybe it has happened, but you have this Olympic race and you've got, like the United States, and you've got Great Britain, England. I don't know. Give me a couple other countries. Who else might be in the race? Who else? Russia. Who else? Give me a couple other countries. What was another nation in the world?
Scotland.
China, Scotland. Who else?
Asia.
What?
Asia.
Asia. Okay, that's not a nation, but yeah. So we'll pick Japan. Okay, and they're all up here. And can you imagine? The gun goes off, and all of a sudden the U.S. guy's like, it's all good. You guys go. And it's one of those, 100 meter dash, and 100-yard dash, whatever it is. I think it's 100 meters. The fastest guys in the world are right around 9.7, 9.8. They're running a meter in under a second. It's incredible. And the fastest women in the world are right not too far behind. They're like 10, maybe low 11s. And can you imagine, ready, set, go, and the guy just like, yeah, I'm good. And then Paul's kind of picking up on that here. He's like, do you not know that in a race all runners run? Yeah, tell me something I don't know, right? People don't join athletics usually to lose. There is a winner and a loser, but rarely ever do you see someone like, what is your goal? I want to be the worst player out there. I doubt it. I mean, I am doubting any of you got up today and are like, I want to be the absolute worst student at LFCA. And your mom was like, yes! That's not normal. And it's not like we look at it as best and worst, but that's just not even normal. And Paul addresses that. He says, look, so one only receives the prize, so run that you may obtain it. The point is, Paul's not saying you're going to win, and you might not win. But the point being, when you go to bed at night, you want to know you did your best. And I hope that's your prayer today on Wednesday, that you did your best today in school. You may not be the best student. I'll be honest with you. I'm sure I'm not the best pastor. I'm probably not the best pastor in Lisbon, let alone in Androscoggin County. And I'm sure I'm not the best pastor in the state of Maine, and I guarantee I'm not the best pastor in the U.S., let alone the world. There's no way. Jonathan Jones is not that gifted. It's not possible. I don't think so for me. But I could be the best pastor for this church. I might not even be the best pastor in the church. Pastor Rodrigo might be a better pastor, or Pastor Brian, but God's not comparing me to them. He's comparing me to him, right? I want to do my best, and that's what Paul's addressing here. We'll get back to social media because this comes right into it. Then he says in verse 25, every athlete exercises self-control in all things. Rarely, I've never seen it, at the Super Bowl, do you see someone win? The Los Angeles Rams just won, and would Matthew Stafford, their quarterback, or when Tom Brady's won as many championships, come out and say, what made you win? Well, I'll tell you, I had a Pepsi every day and Doritos every night. Yeah, baby. No. I just watched a documentary on Tom Brady. And I don't think the man's a Christian. I pray that he trusts in Christ. But he's got a lot of biblical principles, whether he realizes or not, he uses them. One of them was, he said, suffering and hardship are the best things for me. He goes, I hate it, but I love it. And I thought, man, that sounds a lot like the Bible. right? And so that's what Paul's saying here. He says every athlete exercises self-control. So when we think about social media, do we use self-control, or is it just, nah, I'm just going to post and not think about it? I think sometimes, and I can even get caught in this trap, we post or say or send text messages and almost like think like it's not real, like it's fake. You know, it really doesn't matter. It does. And we're going to answer for it. I'm going to answer for it, and so are you. And then Paul says, so I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air. Now he brings in boxing. I mean, can you imagine a boxer in the ring and he's like, oh yeah, you know, I mean, we've kind of seen those people. They put them in psychological wards. If you're punching the air, you've got a problem. Even the best MMA people, mixed martial arts in the world, they don't usually fight just against a wall. There's another human, right? And Paul's like, if you're sitting here beating the air, you've got a problem, buddy, or lady, or whoever it is. And then look what Paul says. He says, I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. Now, you can go out of here today, and in a couple of weeks, and like I said, you can think, oh, there's PJ going off again. I'm going to do the very same thing with my church. And trust me, if you think I'm being hard on you, you haven't seen anything yet. I'm going to, in the love of Jesus, I'm going to drop the hammer on the church, because the pandemic brought out terrible, terrible things from Christians when it came to social media. We should be ashamed. I'm ashamed of some of the things I saw, of some of the fights I saw that took place online, of some of the things Christians said about other Christians, let alone the unsaved. How in the world did that glorify God? You know, I saw post after post after post that many Christians posted on the pandemic on things that I agreed with, but my guess is they never talked to the individuals that they posted about and just gossiped about them online. So let me ask you this. Just think about this. Have any of you ever posted something online or texted someone something about someone that you would never say to their face? I have. And I'm ashamed I've done it. It's easy, right? It's very easy. I'm not sure why. To post something on Facebook, or Twitter's a lot easier, that I would never say to, let's say, Mr. Ancona. I love him dearly. He's a very good friend of mine. I can't imagine saying, as an example, something mean about him online that I wouldn't say to his face, right? I would hope I never do that, right? Or you to me. But people do it all the time. Now, you might say, but everybody else is doing it. Of course they are. I tell my kids that all the time, right? My poor girls probably get sick of it, but how your parents parent you does not affect how I parent my girls. Because I'm not going to answer for your mom and dad. I just answer for how Laura and I parent our girls. I care how your parents parent you, and I know most of your parents. They're good people, they love you, and I think they're probably doing a very good job. The fact that they have you here in the school says a lot. But I'm not going to answer for how they parent you. I'm going to answer how I parent my girls. But this stuff is, biblical principles are not so much about parenting. They're about how we govern our lives. So I want you to think about, how are you governing, if you understand that term, your social media? There's a thing that is very debated in the car world, and that is this. Should we govern how fast cars can go? Yeah, right. I don't think so either. But I understand why they want to do it. Because some people just need speed. And I think sometimes that's how we are with social media. Like, we need a governor. If you're not familiar with what a governor is, it's built into cars. How many of you like to do go-karts? Have you ever done go-karts? Go-kart places drive me crazy because I get up to the point, I haven't done one in several years. Oh, we just had it when we were in South Carolina, right, girls? They had a governor on all of the golf carts, except the one we had. It was really fast. And I may or may not a couple of times caught myself like going a little faster. But because it's a golf cart, it would only go like 20 miles an hour. It's governed, you know. But the other one, remember we rented the other one, it went like 10 miles an hour. And we'd get them next to each other and it wasn't even close, right? That's what we need to do with our social media. That's what Paul's saying here. The athletes govern themselves. There's certain things they don't do. They just can't, because if they want to compete, they have to have their body at their best. And that's the idea here. How does this post glorify God? 1 Corinthians 10:31, which is also up there. It says, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Give no offense to Jews or Greeks or the church of God. Just as I try to please everyone in everything I do, not seeking my own advantage, but that of many they may be saved. So I want to ask you a serious question. If you post something on Facebook, a text message, an email, anything that is social media or something where you're communicating to someone else that you are not man or woman enough to say to their face, you should never post it. I should never post it. The Bible tells us that if we have issues with other people, we should go talk to them. And what I'm finding, especially even in the church and among a lot of kids, it's real easy to post something about, a friend of ours or someone didn't do, or a coach, or even a school or a church, and people will post it online, and it's like, did you go talk to them? It's kind of like back to my example with the presidents. There are many, many things for the presidents I voted for and that I didn't, that I disagree with. Many. But I can tell you, rarely does it ever go online, because I haven't had the opportunity to go talk to the president. And until I can go talk to the president about my issues with him, I'm not going to tell you about it. That's not fair to him. That's not my job to do, right? Now, I can disagree all I want. I can talk to you privately, but I'm not going to go tell everybody else about it. That's airing dirty laundry that's not mine to air, right? Here's one more, and we'll be done today. And this is, I think, one that gets me a lot. Does this help or edify others? So the next time you post, ask this question. Not only does it glorify God, and these should be questions we should ask all the time. When you go out on break today, maybe somebody comes up, says something to you. Maybe you get, a ball accidentally hits you, and you feel like you're going to chuck it back at somebody else. Like, how is that going to glorify God? How does this help or edify others? How does it lift them up? What does the Bible talk to us about that, right? Well, this is a verse that's very near and dear to me. Actually, I think I copied the one. I think this is the wrong one, but I'll turn to it in my Bible. If you want, you can turn to Ephesians chapter 4. And we'll close with this, share a couple of stories and we'll be done. Ephesians chapter 4, I don't think I have it up there on the screen, but 4:29, probably most of you know it. It says this, there we go. Let no corrupt talking come out of your mouth, but only such as good for building up, as it fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. Now, if we were all honest, including me, we don't always do that. I shared this at church, and I think I shared it at our Good Friday service, but I think it bears repeating. There's a story that always gets me. I think his name was Michael. I'll call him that today, but he was a little boy that had Down syndrome, and he was part of a Sunday school class at his church, and it was Easter time. And this story always gets me because this is not the place for me to share it, but when I was a little boy, my parents homeschooled us, and homeschooling back in those days was pretty rough. And the area we grew up in, we were not treated real well. I'll just leave it at that. And so I understand what it's like to have people say things about you that aren't true and cut you down at a young age and at an older age. And so poor little, Michael, he had Down syndrome, and the teacher in the class had asked everyone to draw a picture of what the resurrection meant to them, and something had to do with spring. So everybody draws pictures, one of the girls drew a bunch of lilies at their house, and one of the boys drew Jesus' grave, another one drew a cross, and they all had really cool things. And they were kind of supposed to focus on the resurrection and new life and all that kind of stuff. And so they all bring their things up, and the teacher would, if this was, she'd hold it up and say, "Oh, look at this, this is Jen's thing, and this is Tim's thing," and whatever. They go down and they kind of clap, and they finally get to little Michael's, and Michael's piece of paper is completely blank. And the kids had given him a pretty hard time anyway. He would stutter when he talked, and he had struggles, and they were pretty mean to him. And so the teacher, holds up the piece of paper from Michael, and imagine it's blank. And Michael's just kind of sitting there, and the class just bursts out into laughter. What? You didn't even draw anything? And the hits start coming. And the teacher's even kind of like, Michael. Big tear starts coming down Michael's face. And Michael just sits there and he starts to cry. And the teacher realizes that she's lost the class. Things get quiet. The teacher says, "What were you drawing?" And Michael goes, "But Jesus wasn't there. He's alive." 2 years later, true story, Michael died. And on his tombstone, a bunch of blank pieces of paper were left because Jesus is alive. My guess is all of those kids, Tony Campolo will tell us that story, probably never forgot that the rest of their lives. I'm not here to beat anyone down. I'm here to encourage you. However, is it possible that many of us, including me, have been like those kids in that class online? With our friends, with our parents, with our school, with our church? Like I said, I don't have anybody's name on here. Honestly, I'm thinking it's me. As Christians, I can't let what the world does dictate how I live my life. That story always reminds me, of the power of what we put online. And I want to encourage you, you have in your hand life and death. Moses, way back in the Old Testament, will tell the children of Israel, you have to choose life or you can choose death. And I don't think that we genuinely mean to, but I think many times it's very easy to eviscerate, to say terrible things, to cut people down, to build ourselves up, to make ourselves look better than other people, especially online, Maybe it's someone's clothes, maybe it's something they said, maybe it's something they did or they didn't do. And I just want to encourage you, don't be that person. There's plenty of that out there. There always was. Paul reminds us here, he says, look, if you're going to speak, this is the rule. He says, look, if you're going to talk, let only come out of your mouth that which is good for building up as it fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. And grace is ultimately getting something that you didn't earn. So it's saying things about people, not lying about them, but saying things that, maybe they're not as smart as I am. Maybe they're not as fast as I am. Maybe they're not as accomplished as I am. But I'm not the standard. I'm not the rule. God is. And so just some questions to ask yourself. We'll come back in a couple of weeks, but just to remind you, will I regret this post in 5 seconds, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years? I don't know. I think a lot of us maybe will. How does this post glorify God? And finally, does this post help edify others? And these aren't things just for social media. These should be like life rules. These are things that I try to live by. I don't do it perfectly. But I would give you an example, and I say this genuinely in humility. I'm not perfect. But I think if you go out, for those of you on Instagram or on my Facebook, I think you'll get a pretty good idea of genuinely what posting as a Christian maybe should look like. I'm not perfect. But I pretty much post my family, sports. I post a lot of stuff from the Bible because I know I can't go wrong with that, right? People still disagree with me. I get a lot of PMs of people that are like, I can't believe you posted this verse. A lot of friends I have that don't know the Lord. I get that. And I'm fine with that. If they want to disagree with the Bible, that's it. But I don't post my political thoughts on there because it's not worth arguing. And I try not to post things that I would regret in a lot of these ways, Here's the final one. I'll come back next time. This just came across my screen. That's why I was late for chapel. This is hard to read. How TikTok Live became a strip club filled with 15-year-old kids. Listen to this. If you don't think social media is a little bit of a problem in our country and the world. In March, this is by Forbes, by the way, one of the largest magazines in America. In March, a bipartisan group of state attorneys generally launched an investigation into TikTok's alleged harms to underage users. So this would include about 98% of you in here. Looking into the platform's handling of child sexual abuse material, a TikTok spokesperson said, we appreciate, so this is TikTok talking to the state, we appreciate the state attorneys generally are focusing on the safety of young users, and the company is cooperating. But we as TikTok are not aware of the Homeland Security investigation. The department did not respond to multiple requests for comment from Forbes. So in other words, the magazine is trying to figure out what's going on with TikTok. In the wake of a congressional probe into how Meta and Instagram may hurt children and teens, an inquiry prompted by by revelations by Meta, M-E-T-A, whistleblower last fall, lawmakers in October, for the first time, hauled in a TikTok executive to testify about its own policies on underage users. But more than 6 months since, Congress has made little progress on its pledge to revamp decades-old children online privacy laws. So just so you guys, this isn't just something the pastor's talking about. This is our government and our president. Give him a lot of credit on this. Back over here, this is what the president had to say. The U.S. government and regulators' concerns about youth-focused apps like TikTok are intensifying. In the first State of the Union address in March, President Joe Biden called for Washington to hold social media platforms accountable for the national experiment they're conducting on our children for profit. And while TikTok has been spared the worst, it's probably not going to happen because Facebook and the Chinese-owned video app is beginning to draw more scrutiny for the dangers experts say it poses to minors. So I'll say with no equivocation, if you have TikTok, you should delete it today. No doubt about it. The rest of them, that's up to you. But I will tell you kids this, social media is not something to play with. We just had a 13-year-old girl in Auburn that was abducted at gunpoint, that was returned to her parents early this morning. There are many, many good people online, like hopefully one you're looking at today. And for every one good person online that knows Jesus, there are probably 15,000 bad ones. Be very careful what you post and what you post about. All right? You want to talk to me more about it? Would love to talk with you. And I hope you take some of these, asking, how does what I'm going to post or what I did glorify God? And maybe some of us, maybe even me, need to go and take a few posts down. Probably a lot of us do. And be very careful what we post in the future. Let's pray. Lord, I pray you'd help us today. I pray the kids think through some of these things, because this is the world we live in. It's not easy. It never was. It's not any harder today than it was in Jesus' time or Moses. We might think it is, but they dealt with similar things, just in a different way. And so help us to navigate these times. I pray for these kids right now, for each one, from the older 18-year-olds down to the 11 and 12-year-olds that maybe aren't quite in this world yet. But Lord, they're going to be a part of it. That you give them wisdom, the things that they post, that they would understand that it's not a game, that it can be a very dangerous thing, the things they say and the things they put out there. And Lord, help us remember, help me remember, we're going to answer for the things we look at and the things we post. And that's a hard thing for any of us to remember sometimes, understanding that you know all things, and you love us, and you care for us, and you want what's best for us. Pray you give everyone a good day. Anyone that has a test, maybe they got a hard pace, that you'd help them. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Have a great day.